But we'll go ahead and jump in. So just to review our agenda, you're always welcome to turn on your cameras. It's certainly not required, but if you feel like you'd like to, that's great. We're going to go over our feature review today. We're also going to have a pro tip. We've got an exciting announcement about some coaching calls. Then we're going to get into questions that have already been submitted and then open up for just a general Q&A. So just hopping right into our feature review. So we had some updates come out, I think it was just this week, in our cases, case details. This is going to allow for some more tracking. So we've got some additional first caller information available, some new certifier information available, and some new death certificate. There's a whole new death certificate section that will allow for some beginning of tracking. So I've got some screenshots here that are going over this. So our first caller section used to be called first contact. So that's just been renamed, but it's in the same spot here. So first caller. Really the difference here is that you've now got a checkbox. So if this is also your informant, you can just quickly check that little box and it's going to populate into the informant section too, so that you're not duplicating information. But if it's a separate person and this is maybe a hospice nurse that's calling you, you'll be able to collect their information. And then you'll have your separate information for your informant and your separate information for your authorizing agent. So that is the difference there. And then in the certifier section, this certifier section used to be part of the general section. So now it's got its own section. And then we've added in some additional fields here to start with some additional tracking for you too. So now you can enter a certifier practice name. So, you might have the doctor's name, but if you need to know where they're located, you can enter in their practice. You can also enter in an address. And then you've got a separate notes section for your certifier too. So if you know that this physician, maybe they're a hospitalist and they're only at the hospital 3 days a week and you need to know that for your team, you can go ahead and do that here too. So hopefully just giving you some more capabilities here to keep track of things. And then you've got a new death certificate section here too, which is the starting of some additional tracking to come in the next few months here. But with your death certificates, you can now track the date that the death certificate was filed, the county where it was filed, and then you've got some general statuses here. So is it still being signed? Have we ordered it? Has it been received from the county? Has it been released to the family? So those are the new details there. It's just kind of beefing up those case details for you. And if anybody has questions at any point, feel free to put those in the chat too. We've also got, so we're moving into our pro tip here. So I was thinking about what to do for our pro tip this month. And I think it's really about organizing your cases. We see a lot of dashboards for customers where everything's always stayed in the active tab. So it gets harder as that happens to move things out and know where they are. So just to give you some context here on what I mean is when you're on your cases page, you've got your active tab, you've got your completed tab, you've got your archive tab and your deleted tab. If you never use these and everything lives on your active tab, you can add up your cases really quickly. And then you end up kind of scrolling through things or always having to use the search bar to find things. So this is a test dashboard, and just in creating test cases for, one-off scenario, I've already got 57 items in here, and that would mean that I've got multiple pages to scroll through. Instead of having them organized where I know in my active tab, these are really just my active cases. So my current at needs, my completed would consist of all of my cases that are done and that I want to get a review, because you have to remember that completed tab is also how your customers are going to get a request to review your services. So if reviews is important to you and you're not using the completed tab, you'd certainly want to start using that so that you can get those reviews. Your archive tab, this is really where anything that's not at need can live, right? So if you've got a pre-need case, they've arranged through your online store, you've maybe got all your paperwork signed. There's nothing else to do with this case until it becomes an at-need. I would just move that over here to archived, because it's always going to be accessible, either by clicking on your archive tab or coming up to your search bar. But then your active tab is a bit more organized so that you've only got those active cases. And then of course you've got deleted. So if you ever have a case that maybe it was entered twice or anything like that, you can go ahead and delete that case, and it can live over on the deleted tab. It just helps keep things more organized. And then if you're using the filters on this tab here too, you'd be able to quickly filter by either case assignee, so who your case manager is, dates and things like that. And it's going to be a whole lot less information that if you've got cases organized into tabs versus every single case on one tab, especially if you've been a customer for several years. So that is my pro tip, but I'd be happy to walk anybody through that further or help set up practices. I do think it's best if you can build this into a routine for your team. For example, from moving an at-need case from an active to completed, the way I prefer to do this is once services are complete, or if we're doing a cremation is complete. But then I build this into a process when family comes to pick up the cremated remains. So once the family comes to pick up the cremated remains, we have a flow that we go through. They're going to sign our receipt for cremated remains. I'm maybe going to do a last check if I've got a paper file to see if I can put that away in the filing cabinet. And then I'm also going to come in here and complete this case in Parting Pro so that gets done and the family gets the request for review, because that to me feels like a good time frame to do that, rather than doing it after I've met with the family and maybe the cremation hasn't been complete yet. So I like that time frame, but you can certainly build it in whenever you need to. I just feel like having a routine is probably the easiest way to get this done. We've got a few more people joining, so welcome to those that are joining us. We have recorded the call, which you'll get afterwards as well, so you'll be able to see the beginning of the meeting here too, but feel free and put anything in the chat at any point. And then we have an exciting announcement coming up. So starting in August, we're going to be offering weekly coaching sessions. This is going to be with our client success team. So myself and Andrea, who's on vacation this week, so she's not here. But coming up in August, we've decided on 3 topics that should be key drivers for you all, that are going to provide some valuable insight and strategies for you and your teams. And those topics are going to be aligning your team for success. So one thing we see, especially with customers starting out with Parting Pro, that if their team isn't really on the same page, it's a whole lot harder for them to get going. So that's going to be a topic. Best practices for online arrangements is going to be a topic. So this is going to get into kind of how to offer online arrangements, how to make your website optimized for online arrangements. And then we've got become a price shopper master. So this is going to be more so dealing with that customer who's calling you on the phone, some best practices for that. So we're excited to be able to roll these out. We're going to start offering them in August, and we'll send out links probably in our upcoming newsletter that anybody can sign up for these coaching calls at any time. So they will be available to you and your teams. Okay, so from here, we're going to get into questions that have been submitted. So each time we have a monthly AMA, we send out a link for people to submit questions if they have certain things that they want to make sure that get answered. So we'll go through these, and then we're going to go ahead and get into some open questions too, so that anybody in the call can ask questions as well. And then if you've got questions on anything I'm going over, feel free and let me know, or put them. I can kind of go into more detail. So one of the first questions we have here is there a way for you all to not post on our obituary page when someone pays? So if you've got a Parting Pro website, we do have the ability to have the obituary information push over to the obituaries. So what this question is in regards to is the timing of that obituary being published. So there's a kind of a two-part answer here. If you are using, again, a Parting Pro website, when you go into your settings page here, you're going to have a little spot that says obituary. And if you want every obituary to publish automatically all the time, you're going to toggle on this button. It sounds like that's probably not what this question is getting to. So for this particular question, you probably want to make sure this toggle is off if you're wanting them to post only at certain times, maybe after a payment. Then you don't want this general setting on. What you're going to want is in each case, so within the case details for each case, you also have a button that's going to allow for that to manually be published over to the obituary page. So what you'll want to do is, if you are wanting to have this tied to payment in some way, what you're going to want to do, if you want this to publish after you receive payment, then after you get the payment for that case, you'll come into those case details, into the obituary information, and toggle on this button, which is going to allow this to be published according to the guidelines stated right on the page there. So that's what I would say for that. I hope that answers your question. If not, though, let me know. Okay, a couple other questions. So several of these are about payment. So I'm probably going to just go into my dashboard to show these. So we have a case of someone who might have paid twice. How can we refund? This one's about sending a contract. And then how do you manually type in a credit card for payment? So let me stop sharing my screen really quick. And then I'm going to go into, or my presentation rather, and I'm going to go into our, my Parting Pro dashboard. So the first question there was about doing a refund. So if you need to do a refund, first thing that you need to make sure is that you're an admin in the system. So only administrators in Parting Pro can do refunds at this time. So as long as you are an admin, you're going to come into your payments tab, which is where I am now. So just go up to where your name is, come down to your payments tab. And then when you click into any payment, a couple things first to note is you'll see right below the payment method whether it was offline. Now this is my test dashboard, so I don't have any online payments, meaning that a customer is actually paid with their own credit card. So all of these payments say offline. But when you come in to record your refund, you'll just be clicking on the payment, and then you've got this record refund button. You've also got the other payment details here, but when you click on record refund, you'll be able to choose to give a full refund or a partial refund. You can record the refund amount, the reason for the refund if you need to, and you can do this for online or offline payments. So if a customer paid you online, or maybe they didn't pay you online, maybe they've paid you with a check, but now you need to do a refund for something and you're going to refund them. You can still come in here and show this here, even as an offline payment, so that you have the accurate recording. But that's how you do the refunds. You'll just come in, click the record refund, fill out your details here, whether it's a full refund, partial refund. You've got that option for a reason, and then you can click record refund there. Any questions on recording refunds or anything to do with refunds while I'm here? I'm just going to go back and look at my next question that was with payments. So the next question is, can we send a contract over for a customer? And if so, how? So we don't at this time have the ability to send a contract separate from the payment. So the way that the contracts are collected at this time is once the customer makes a payment, whether they're in your online store or you're manually sending them an invoice from your payments tab here. When you go ahead and send that invoice and you generate that invoice and send it, once they pay, they're signing your statement for you. And that's currently how it's working. We are working to optimize this because we realize this is a gap that probably you'd like to have customer signed statements separate from the payment. So we are working on that, but that's currently how it works. And then last question in regards to payment. So how do you manually type in a credit card for payment? So to type in a credit card for payment, let me go to another case that I've actually got correct information in here. We'll try this one. Let me just generate this one really quick, and then I'll show you. I'm just generating an invoice really quick so I have something to apply a payment to. So now that I've got an actual invoice generated, you can come down here into the section of invoices, and you've got the option here to record an invoice payment. So if you're wanting to manually record a payment or manually take a credit card over the phone, this is going to be the way that you're going to do that. So you're going to choose record invoice payment. You're going to choose the invoice that you're applying a payment to. Then you've got your different payment methods. So if it is a credit or debit card and you're wanting to actually process that card, you can toggle on this little button, which is going to allow you to enter in the credit card information and actually charge the card here. And so this is why this little box opens up, so that if you are passing on that processing fee to the customer, you know what that total is so that you can inform them, and you've got your gross total there as well. Otherwise, if you're doing cash, check, insurance, anything else, you just choose that method. You've got an option to put a note in here if you need to record a note about this. And then you've also got the option here to send a request for electronic signature. So to the previous question as well, how do you get a signature on the statement of funeral goods and services? So if you're manually recording a payment, you can still send that statement out to the family so that they'll sign it, as well as a receipt. And then simply hitting the record payment button is going to update that for you. And then you're going to see your payment balances here update too. So balance due, balance paid, total invoiced. Okay, let me get back in here. So that reviews those kind of payment questions. The next question we had is, we are wanting to start making it where our imminent cases can make payment and complete forms. How do we need to make this happen? So the way that you would do this is, your customer, if they're going through your online store and they're choosing Imminent, they don't have an option at the end of that checkout flow to pay, because there's so many different rules regarding taking payments before arrangement, whether that's for pre-need or imminent. So right now we just don't have the option for an imminent or pre-need case to pay. So the way that you would do this is, after you've got that submitted information, you can go ahead, you can still generate an invoice and you can still generate forms just like you would for an at-need. So if your funeral home or in your state allows for that imminent payment, then you would do it just like you would an at-need who's gone through your store and hasn't made payment, or you're going to generate an invoice and send to them. So that's not going to, there's no stop there for you to do that just because it's an imminent case. It's just in the store that you can't do it. So you would just generate an invoice to the family, have them pay that. And then the same thing with forms. You can go ahead and generate forms for them to sign. So if you've got authorization forms, you can still send them a vitals. You can kind of treat it just like an at-need case after it's gone through your store on what you want to do with it. So I hope that answers your question there. And then next question is, I have a PDF form that has a required signature line on it already. Can you make it so that the recipient can place their signature there where it is required? Yes, generally we can, unless there's like a spacing issue and we have to do something with spacing if signatures end up covering the documents. We run into this a little bit when you're using like in-person forms. They don't always transfer to e-signatures as well when we're trying to type out information and use signature size and stuff. But generally, yes, we can make it just how you want it, with maybe some spacing tweaks to. But we would have you do is just send the form over to us, and we'd be able to take a look at that particular form and tell you what we can do with it. So yeah, just go ahead and send that one over. Okay, so we've got quite a bit of time now for just a general Q&A. So if anybody has questions, again, you're welcome to put those in the chat. You're also just welcome to ask. So whatever anybody's comfortable with, we can go ahead and get into those. Does anybody have anything?
Thanks for that information on sending invoices and all those things. I had a question as far as the default funeral director,
Okay,
that those things that are added here recently. Help
sure.
me just kind of understand the use case on that.
And so, yes, and I'm sorry, you were cutting out just a little bit. So you're wanting to know how the funeral director signature maybe works on with the new information?
The default funeral director.
The default funeral director. Okay. Yes. So the default funeral director, and let me just go out to a dashboard. This will be easier to get into. Okay, so what we're talking about here is we've got in Parting Pro, you've got a case manager, you've also got a funeral director role. And then inside the team settings here, there is a default funeral director designation. And so your question is kind of how this works. Is that right, Madison? Oh, I'm sorry, you're on mute. And kind of the use case around it.
Between that and the case manager,
That
what
case manager.
that
Okay.
looked like for us using
Sure. Okay. So really the default funeral director is going to be auto assigned to new cases, meaning so if you've got a case, a customer that's gone through your online store and submitted information, maybe they've paid everything. When that case enters into your Parting Pro system, your default funeral director's name is automatically going to be on that case. And they're also going to be the signature their name is also the name that's on the statement of funeral goods and services as that default signature, because we need somebody designated to go ahead and sign that. Now, using just to use your funeral director list, what we'll do is go into a case here, and then this is really going to allow you to assign who your director is. So if Ashley's the director and not Fred, I can make that change. I can also fill it in when I'm starting the case. So if I'm the one starting the case, or if Madison, you're starting the case, you're going to be the funeral director on that case, you would go ahead and put your name in there, but maybe you've got some administrative staff who's helping you manage the case. So that was the reason for the 2 designations. So if you do have multiple staff members that are managing a case, and maybe you've got some administrative staff, and in this case, Hillary is kind of assisting you with the case and maybe sending forms out for you, but you're the funeral director and your name is the one who needs to go on that statement, then it's the name here that you've entered here that's going to show up on that signed statement of funeral goods and services.
Okay. And I got distracted for a minute when you started. So the default funeral director, if we select one, that's whose name would automatically appear on each of those cases as the funeral director.
If it will automatically appear on cases that don't have a funeral director designated. So if you just forgot to put in a funeral director, but a family makes a payment and signs the statement, that default funeral director's name is going to show up on the statement. And then also the default funeral director's name will appear on any paid cases coming from your online store, because if you haven't had a chance, or if this is a case just coming from the family going to your website, they've made a payment and they've signed a statement, we need a name to be on that statement. So that's what the default is going to be. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Any other questions about that? Or any other questions at all? And we do have quite a bit of time, so I'm really happy to kind of dive deeper on anything that anybody would want to. So we'll give a couple minutes here to see if there's some more questions that come up. Well, if there are no more questions, we'll go ahead and let everybody go. You can always email us with questions. So success@partingpro.com comes directly into our client success team. So that's again, myself and Andrea and Crystal who helps us here. We'll go ahead and send out the recording. And then look for that announcement of our coaching calls coming up soon and see if any of those are going to be helpful to you and your team. And we'd be happy to see you there too.